Where do overtime regulations apply for remote workers? Breaking news for employees and employers alike. The question on many minds today is, where do overtime regulations apply for remote workers? With the rise of remote work, understanding these rules has never been more important. If you are working from home or managing a remote team, you may be searching for clarity on this topic right now. Overtime regulations for remote workers are based on the Fair Labor Standards Act of 1938, often referred to as the FLSA. This law lays out the guidelines for overtime pay across the United States. Under the FLSA, employers must pay eligible employees overtime at a rate of 1.5 times their regular pay for hours worked beyond 40 in a work week. This rule is applicable to most employees, including those working remotely. For remote workers, the key factor is whether the employee is classified as non-exempt under the FLSA. Non-exempt workers are entitled to overtime pay. Importantly, the location where work is performed, whether in an office or at home, does not impact the application of these rules. Remote workers are subject to the same overtime requirements as in-office employees, as long as they are classified as non-exempt. Recent changes in tax law, particularly the One Big Beautiful Bill Act signed into law in July 2025, have introduced a new deduction for qualified overtime compensation. This deduction allows workers to exclude up to $12,500 of overtime pay from federal income tax, or $25,000 for joint filers, if their income falls below certain thresholds. However, this tax deduction applies only to overtime required under the FLSA, not to overtime paid under state laws or collective bargaining agreements. It is also important to note that this tax change does not affect payroll taxes like Social Security and Medicare. Employers are responsible for tracking and reporting qualified overtime compensation for all employees, including those working remotely, on Form W-2. For independent contractors, reporting is done on Form 1099 non-employee compensation. The Internal Revenue Service will update withholding procedures and tax forms to reflect these new rules. In summary, overtime regulations apply to remote workers in the same manner as they do for in-office workers, provided the worker is non-exempt under the Fair Labor Standards Act. The new tax law offers a deduction for qualified overtime pay, but the basic overtime pay requirements remain unchanged. Employers must ensure proper tracking and reporting for all workers, regardless of their work location.